So there we have it. We're back. We're back online. If everyone in the chat could just let us know how is the sound quality. Hopefully that's done it, and we're back to how we were pre the earnings. I think,
you know what? There's always a bit of excitement on the Hustle Brother channel. I love it. But guys, no, thank you for coming back. Yeah, do you know what? I'm just gonna crack straight on with my thoughts there. I felt like we were going around and around the circles again. There was nothing there that jumped out massively. No, positive. No, I'm gonna be positive here. Adam did sound fairly confident, and that was probably the most confident I've heard him sound in a questions and answer session. And I put it into the chat very early on. I said, if he can keep this same energy, this confidence, this enthusiasm going throughout the call, because I actually looked into this. It was after a second ever earnings call, and they do have a preset of questions they get given, but they do have the odd ones that do come in that do take them off guard. And that's why I think very early on, you had the likes of Adam and Joe Ben sort of going around the circles. But I feel like Joby going forward have got more precise, where I just feel like, as you said, Reese, we have a plan, but what is your plan? But we spoke about 2 earnings calls ago plan. And if you go back to 2 earnings calls ago, it's the same thing. We can't talk about it. We've talked about this before. It's kind of like, I don't know, Chinese whispers.
The one that's really getting me as well is that, like, I do understand with the defense, there would be an element of it that it has to be like top secret and you need to keep it under wraps. But I don't know about designing the hybrid, and I don't know. It just seems like it's very convenient just to sort of throw that blanket over it. However, in speaking about that, I do think now defense seems to be like it's going to be the main part of ACHR, and that's the, like, to be honest, that's the only way I can see where they can get the advantage now and like really push it over the line. It seems like with this type certification that they are, I feel like if they were close, I think they would be telling us where they were sitting right now. TIA didn't seem to have too much information. It sounds like they are going to be doing TIA, but I'm not sure when.
I'm just going to jump in there before you get past that defense side. The only thing I found very confusing, like very early on, they've split off Archer Defense and Archer Aviation. But then when he was directly asked a question about where's the investments going out of that 1.7 billion, he was like, we haven't really separated the two. And I was like, are they separate or are they not separate? And this is where I can't get my head around it. I'm like, why create that separate entity? But yet you're not really thinking.
I think they're not separate yet. I think that's what he's saying. And once it becomes like its own revenue generating business, I think then it will become its own entity. But I imagine at this point, maybe they're just trying to get everything over the line. That's the interpretation I was taking from it, maybe being optimistic. I guess there's no better person to ask about his thoughts and feelings than Archer's biggest ball. What was your feeling
you went
there?
to me. All right, I thought that was a setup for Mark. Honestly, I'm gonna go the cons, but I'm also gonna go with some pros as I try to star them out. And again, analyzing the call, 2-3 minutes after, I'm not gonna lie, it's not as easy as when I go back through and listen to it a second and third time, so I can really continue to pull the nuggets out of the call. But I'm gonna do my best for you guys here. One that I'll let Mark speak on later is going to be where they were confirming the 4 blades. So I thought that was something that was interesting, as the community has kind of gone back and forth on being curious on which way Archer was going to go with that in the design. And that can also bring me towards the Overair acquisition. So if you look at those props and designs and the IP through those tilt rotors, maybe something that's playing into that acquisition from Overair as well. I thought it was an interesting note, just as Mark had talked about flying into the company in Georgia Municipal Airport, how Adam was talking about where their locations we're next to I believe it was the FAA Atlanta CERT office, and they were having frequent on-site engagement. So that was just a little pro nugget I took out of that, if we're taking it by word. Also something, as Joby was acquiring Blade, I think there's a lot of enthusiasm over that, basically already routed passenger-to-passenger operations. So I think with Archer, again, what I've seen with them is them taking the approach where if we don't get certified by the FAA, how are we going to maintain as a company? And that, again, going to the GCAA, the JetX partnerships, Signature, Falcon Aviation. So some of the things that they've already set up 6, 9, well, I guess we'll say it in quarters, 2 to 3 quarters ago, some partnerships that they've already set up on that side. To go forward, I thought that there was a very, one thing, I'll go con on this just because it doesn't match quite to the guidance that was given on the last call. We were told that there was going to be a piloted flight. Just in my gut, first reaction, if Archer thought that it was going to be a piloted CTOL flight, why not come out and say that on the last earnings call? And then have the Archer community kind of curious over why we haven't done the VTOL. So kind of curious why they kind of slammed. Now, for me, I can have a bullish thought as the CTOL has different use case applications, does some battery conservation, depending on if we're able to land at runways. So I get kind of back and forth a little bit, but the explanation of why they stuck to the CTOL was a little bit confusing to me, as I thought if that was their plan, they could have announced that last quarter and had that be for what as us as the investors to look forward to. I think that there was the little shot at Joby in there about basically you can't just take a VTOL and switch the powertrain and have that turn into a defense application. So that was like the tiny shot in there.
Wait, I just want to jump in just quickly whilst you're on that.
Yeah, of course.
There was another one where they mentioned about the double the cash, obviously, of the next closest competitor. I did quite enjoy that. I like the. I we were saying this on the last one. I do like the little barbs back and forth. I think it just goes to show they are competitive, and that's why I know for a fact they won't let them. If they're going to let them get their commercialization, there's no way that they haven't got another plan to try and get one over them. Anyway, sorry.
No. I love that. No, that's okay. And what I'm looking for, because I just want to get the accurate notes on it, was basically as they were signing additional. So let me just get these notes and then I'll pass it over to Mark. But it was about the money that can actually come in from the UAE operations. They were saying that to be okay. So sign the revenue ADA and with audio for the tens of millions of dollars, and the payments starting this year. So not just through the defense, but also with the signing with the ADA. It does sound like Archer plans to pull money through the doors towards the end of this year. They were now presenting that we're going to be doing more piloted VTOLs on the second half of the year. So I think it's something to look forward and see if they're sticking to that guidance on. And then again, just bringing up I had it started here, the new aft 4-blade propellers. So of course, if Mark can, he'll speak on that. And then also there was one question I felt like was kind of skipped over, and I believe that was Bill again, and he was asking, when do you foresee the FAA pilots on board? And that to me was unanswered in the questions over the first here. So I have some pros, some possible cons, and some in the middles right now, right after the call. Yeah. So far, yeah, digesting. How you feeling, Mark?
All right. I don't think they sold a whole lot of hope either. What I've come up with is on the commercialization side, they're doing a design change, and so they're going to the 4-bladed prop, which is why they have not done a piloted conversion, because they've just not fully vetted that design yet. Most likely, they don't have that design fully released yet or completely finished. So when they say they're going to start going into TIA testing and they're going to use 6 aircraft to do it, they're going to on the cert plans that they do have released so far that don't necessarily. I mean, you can do certification plans on typically this is done towards the end of a cert program, but like your interior and sound qualities and human factors type things. So they could potentially have those cert plans completely done, and they can implement that into an earlier model and then go and fly in a CTOL configuration and achieve those test points and get those data points and get credit for that in a TIA credit basis. That's just an example. I'm not saying that that's exactly what they're going to do, but from what I'm hearing is they are shifting completely away from the 2-bladed rear rotor, going to the 4-bladed rear rotor. It's going to take them time. I bet you that rotor, I would expect that they are redesigning that entire rotor system, which is putting their cert program behind schedule. So what I heard is they're now going to this launch edition aircraft. They're going to countries that are going to accept the aircraft for revenue generating flights. And these countries are going to say, okay, you don't need to have FAA certification. And they're going to get buy-offs. So they will go, because they mention like someplace in Africa? Like I heard, what was it?
It was an additional launch addition customer minimally. Yeah, the Ethiopian Airlines.
Yeah. So they could theoretically go to Ethiopia, and Ethiopia would be like, yeah, we want to get recognition in the world of having this new technology in our within our society. And we don't care if you have FAA certification. Here's your stamp of approval. Go ahead and start doing revenue generating flights. That's what I hear this whole launch edition aircraft will be. They're going to take their airplanes, they're going to go deliver them, and they're going to go and say, look, we're generating revenue. We're beating our competitor because we don't need to have FAA certification. In terms of a hard date of when they will be doing revenue generating flights, and which means you've gotten through TIA testing, they said the Olympics. So we're 3 years out. And I think now their positive is they got a lot of money. They can definitely, they do have the runway that they need to get through it. But I think from what I'm hearing on that conference call is they're doing a design change. They are going to certify through the Atlanta office, which means they'll be doing their flight testing most likely out of certification is always regional. So like Gulfstream is in Savannah, Georgia. They always go through the Atlanta office. Honda Jet is in Greensboro. They had to go through the Atlanta office. If they were out certifying in Los Angeles, or if they were certifying on the West Coast, they'd most likely have to go through the LA office. So, and like Joby, I believe, is going through the LA office. So that means their TIA aircraft most likely will have to be fully assembled, and they'll either have to be completely done in the Covington, Georgia facility, or they're going to have to be transferred over. I guess they could be transferred over, but most likely you do your flight. All the flight testing is going to happen here in Georgia then, where they have FAA pilots on board. And you're right. He didn't answer that question. Like they specifically said, when are you going to have FAA pilots on board? Which basically means, when are you basically going to do what Joby said they're going to do? And he didn't answer it. I wish he would have just said, we're going to be a year from that. We're a year from that point. He pointed out that he kind of pushed it back on the FAA, saying that, well, nobody is to the point of TIA testing because, we're waiting on the FAA to give us guidance. That isn't necessarily true. They submitted their means of compliance. And a lot of times, if there's questions that you have for the FAA, you ask them your cert questions, and the FAA will then do what's called an issue paper. They will then respond back through an issue paper that says, this is how we propose you certify through, some form of means. And then they go based on that issue paper and write their test plans and and then move forward with the design to conduct the test and move forward. And the FAA says, yes, we accept that because your means of compliance meets our issue paper. And he mentioned that, well, we're still waiting on issue papers, or we just got an issue paper, which means they still have more work to do. They've got a ways to go yet. I think that was not pounding the fist on the table saying, I can't stress how close we are. We are going into TIA testing. We have the FAA pilots lined up in January, and we're moving forward. Now, it's to no fault of their own. This is the design process. Sometimes you get to a certain point and you say, oh, we have to add a 4-bladed rotor. And most likely what they're going to do is they're going to now make that rotor system to where when it's not spinning, it's going to actually articulate like the other 4-bladed rotors that you see in, I can't think of it now, is it Eve aircraft, I believe, where their rotor actually is a 4-blade like a cross, but then when it's not in use, one of them rotates 90 degrees. It'll rotate. I suspect they would probably they're going to do that because then that's going to make them more efficient in airborne flight. Or they can just stick with a solid, 4-bladed rotor and take the penalty. But at the end of the day, I think they've got some design changes that they're working through. And I think, the only hard date he really gave us is we're going to be at full-scale production in 2028, and we're going to be at the Olympics. So that tells me, okay, you're probably, my judgment, they're a year away from TIA testing. And that means they are a year and a half to, 20 months from potentially certification. That's on the commercial side. On the government side, they're being very non-specific about it. And I think they're being non-specific about it because all they have at this point is an agreement with Anduril. And Anduril does not have a contract with the government yet. There is no program of record yet. When there will be a program of record, they'll announce it. And that program of record could potentially be in the next few months, but it could also be in the next year. It could take time. Remember, the government may have the use case, but then the government also comes out and says, all right, when we want an aircraft, we want, if they're going to start handing money to you, they're going to have a really large set of requirements also. So the government still may be developing those requirements. And the government just requested, well, in the next budget, we want $5 billion, but we're not completely filled with our requirements as well. So I think Archer is on the defense side. Their fate is not in their hands. Their fate is going to be in the hands of the government actually putting out requests for proposals, Anduril winning those bids. And remember, Joby is also competing for those bids. So they've got a ways to go. They do have plenty of money. He's not wrong in that respect. I still fully believe they're going to get to certification. We're going to start generating revenue by the end of the year with these agreements they have with other countries. I don't know if maybe that's like a buy-in, like they're going to give you money just so that you can exclusively use then their aircraft, or what that cost structure looks like and why they're doing that. But I don't necessarily see that they're going to be generating revenue by putting passengers on Archers and them flying people from A to B. So they didn't really give us a timeline. We can't really, they didn't strike a line in the sand like Joby did. I think we've got a little ways to go yet.
Well, on that, Mark, the real quick thing I'll say and pass it to the group, I think this is the first call, and at least I've heard in quite a while, 2, 3, 4 quarters from Adam, where there hasn't been the grandiose guidance that's been set for the next quarter. So, again, time for us each individually to sleep on it. So I can, on one hand, I can see that as a good thing where we're not here, maybe selling the hope, selling the empty promises that are not going to come to fruition. So it seemed like more his guidance was speaking to end of year. So maybe it will be interesting again to see what happens within this next quarter. One pro, and Mark, you touched on it just with the Covington facility. So it seems to me, at least by what Archer is showing me, that there is something going on inside of that facility. So I would like to see over the next quarter what that ramp of production, or if it's not even a ramp of production, just really, are they showcasing office facility? What is going on inside the doors of Covington, as opposed to just having the basic fully airframe kind of put there, and you have an assembly line, but what are we finally assembling on that aircraft?
Well, that's the exact same thing I heard as well, because they started to transition that they're building a line in California, and that line is going to mimic the Covington, Georgia facility, which will be your full-scale production ramp-up, which is exactly what Joby's been doing as well. They have a pilot line, and they're going to do that. They're going to take that pilot line, and that's where they're going to basically prove out their assembly and their production build, and then they'll scale it in Covington. But the only date you got to what does full-scale production look like, he said 2028. And that's a hard date he said. So
I think one thing we could maybe do is jump into the comments and see what
let's answer
everyone in here was thinking.
Everyone else says.
So Scott Invest said, yay, back online.
Nice.
Scott said that the sound is great, excellent, clear and crisp, sounds good. Thumbs up ×2 from Bag. Hookvam said, crystal clear, guys. Bag said, can you find and replied that woman's question about certification. If you specify which one and leave it in the comments, Bag, I can have a look into that.
Yeah.
Fast CNC says, I feel more confident coming out of that than going in, mainly because I'm heaviest into defense. They really iterated that the acquisitions are for rapid iteration of the defense side. I think that's fair.
And I think that's a changeover. I think in your, I'll just speak to me into my investor mindset, whether, again, if this is something that I'm going to be forward looking towards, again, any guidance that brings it closer to any FAA certification or the mass production that can get us into commercialization with inside the US prior to 2028. Or again, if the path that Archer's going to go for the next 2 years is defense, and if they're actually bringing revenue in through the door, either that and or the launch edition customers, to see that on the balance sheet and have that continued growth, market cap go through the company until they get to that mass production for the commercialization for 28.
100%. The Fast CNC goes on to say that they are not pulling resources from commercial business line divergence rather than a pivot. I guess that is it. They're not putting all their eggs in one basket. They're sort of spreading the risk. I'd just be a bit disappointed. I did want to see, or I did want to get on midnight.
I know, Reese, you're ready to fly on. You're ready to fly on it. You're going to be
I said it since day one.
First test passenger. Yeah, you're geared up. So let me know when it's ready.
I crashed on me. Bagger Holden said it sounded like they said nobody's close to TI flight testing. Then later said that they will start by the end of year. It was cutting off, so I couldn't tell. I don't think there'll be. Well, Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't foresee them going into TIA testing until next year. At
the very least, I'd say.
Yeah,
especially if they're changing.
Yeah, and again, they're not being concise with their wording. They're saying, FAA aircraft, or FAA. They're saying FAA flight test aircraft. you need, as where Joby said, this is our company conformal aircraft. And from someone who works in aerospace, that knows that, okay, all of your designs are done and you are assembling your conformed article that is what the FAA has accepted. Your flight test aircraft, those can be your company aircraft, and they can be almost exactly the same. But if you still have design changes that are in process, you're not going to go to TIA testing. It's just not going to happen. So I think that they are, again, I just think they're a bit further. They're just not as far ahead as their competitor. And to the jab that they made, I think the jab about having money, it's okay, but
what are you doing with it?
Well, or Joby
Joby
could issue, a couple $1 billion in share, or could do a tender offer and double their liquidity if they wanted to, lower their stock price.
And to tout the highest cash position, it's like
there's market, there's cash on hand, but then there's also market cap too. So
absolutely.
Bag goes on to say, and this is a normal Bag comment, they didn't do VTOL because it can't lift itself because it's too big and heavy. The square cube law smacked them in the face. James Rosendale said, well, Archer did their raise already, basically similar to what we just mentioned about. Joby did not. What that tells me is that Archer were worried about not getting a better opportunity later. Joby will do theirs after certification. That's an interesting comment.
Interesting.
What do you guys think about
that? I'll tell you, as somebody that checks the SEC filings, I've been waiting to see either insiders. The only person that's sold from Joby has been Bonnie. And that, it's pretty standard for the course, par for the course for, the CFOs, and really outside of the CEO, kind of selling any shares to raise any red flags. So, I think for me, as the eVTOL investor, I was waiting for the Joby dip based on dilution. But I guess on that side, it doesn't seem like Jobin feels like his company is in the need for cash right now. So if you don't need to dilute and make your investors mad, and you don't need the capital at this moment, let the market cap be.
Yeah.
And $1 billion is a lot of money in this space. So that they have, I think both of them have plenty of money to get them where they need to.
And if you think about it, like, if they want to, so if his end goal is to raise more capital to upscale, why do it now when he honestly believes he will get to certification with that $1 billion? We know at certification that baby's going to run higher than it is today, and therefore you'd be able to dilute it at a higher price.
I imagine it's like what Mark has said a few times about it's increasing the manufacturing. That's probably the highest cost because you need to be able to
your CapEx,
basically just have enough plant in order to be able to do the 50 aircrafts a year or 100 or pushing up to 200. So that's what you need dilution.
Now a bit of the difference is they might be able to save on some of their CapEx if they go to suppliers and say, we will, because then those suppliers already have the infrastructure in place. They have the autoclaves, they have the automated fiber placement machines. They also have the supply chain in place as well to ramp up production quicker. And that also defers your CapEx out until you take delivery. So that could save them, and that's why Boeing builds the 787 all over the world, and then it all gets shipped in on airplanes and whatnot, and is assembled in Washington. As where Joby is completely vertically integrated to reduce risk, and they want to control everything. There's some pros and cons to that. But again, I still think both of them have the capital that they need to get to certification.
And let's say that you're Adam and you are talking with your engineering team and you're talking about how close you can get this thing to cert with the FAA or get this off the TIA. So let's say back in December, so you're realizing that, okay, we are a year further out than we initially intended. So this is going to be about 2 years from now. So we need to pivot towards Archer defense. So I guess I just, if anybody maybe wants to lift the spirits at all, I still think that there has been something cooking in the background that put Archer's brain into splitting these divisions and having Archer defense, and then again, grabbing the over air to have the butterfly and the tilt rotor. I think again that was something I was curious about in speaking. Are we going to a redesign over the commercial aircraft, or was that anything that was going to play into the defense aircraft? And then also with the MCC, the mission critical composite, with the mission critical components manufacturing facility, if Archer can figure out a way to have an aircraft that is able to bypass FAA, that the DoD is intending to want, I think that they have a very strategic plan that they're lining up. Now, if, again, like you say, Mark, if this is all program of record and we're really relying on Andrew to get that program of record, I mean, it's a bit more dicey. We're buying manufacturing facilities for ... So, yeah, definitely time to digest on it, but just kind of trying to balance the moods of, I don't know. I think Adam can sometimes leave us like almost wanting.
Well, Adam did say just a few weeks ago he was in a room with the Vice President and Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense. So if he's shaking hands with people within that highest level of our government, I'm sure he is getting a word in for his company and what the capabilities will be. So I'm not gonna say that, oh, there isn't a program of record out there yet. I mean, for all we know, Hegseth kind of gave him a wink and said, hey, come November, there's going to be a ton of money coming your way. You never know. I think that those contracts are going to get split, or that pot of money will get split, but it's billions and billions of dollars. And also to that, it's going to happen through the defense contractors, and then that money will flow to Joby and will flow to Archer. Neither Joby or Archer are defense contractors. Their facilities are not set up for handling secret and top secret data. So that has to happen at Anduril's facility, or it has to happen at L3's facilities because they're set up for it. What both Joby and Archer will end up doing will be delivering the airframes, and then then we'll most likely get paid, and then off they'll go and they'll militarize them as they need to.
Yeah, and I agree. And then kind of if you break down to the they were talking about the tens of millions to the launch edition. To me, that symbols about 2 aircraft per launch edition customer. So if they're looking to pull in 10 million of revenue through the launch edition program this year, then I would assume if we're sticking with UAE, that would be 2 Midnights delivered to UAE. So they're going to have to figure out a way still with this manufacturing. If they said now that they are in the production to have 8 total Midnights. So again, as you're shipping these off, once these programs of record become available, what is the date that you are then going to need to deliver your product to Anduril by to meet that record as well. So, it's I'm kind of both sides with it. That's where, again, with the mission critical composites, I think can play into the ramp of manufacturing if the program of record comes. But still, where we stand at this point, I feel like we're on a little bit slower burn to be able to supply the aircraft to as many of the partners that we do have our hands in the mix of. So it's an interesting one there.
Yeah. They got a lot of work ahead of them. They'll get there, but they've got some work ahead of them. I'd like more transparency and less, less selling of just, I would just like them to be more direct, but
Mm-hmm.
they'll get there.
We're a defense company. Mm-hmm.
So
then let me jump
Yeah, what
across
you got?
to the comments here. So, geez, we actually have quite a few, don't we? So, Hookname says that tells me that if they don't get DoD contracts, we'll sell my position and we'll rebuild again after 2027 to progress. That CNC says, I'm bullish on the defensive side. This admin is moving fast, and there is a lot of big donor money pushing them to scale out defense tech. Then James agrees with Vast, but what is the differentiator in that sector now? Joby has gone in too with the hybrid turbine model. Scott Invest said, I'd like to slap some more powerful motors on it, reinforce the frame, and see that the thing can do tricks and crazy flips. Imagine a human piloted drone. Phil says, unlike Archer, not to boast about GA makes me suspicious.
Well, I think they mentioned it. This was one of the first time they mentioned it. So if not boasting, at least, I'm going to be honest, as the Archer investor who's been searching and trying to find any information on that facility, I do appreciate that we at least got something coming from that facility on this call. So I'll give a nod to him on that.
Then, guys, do bang that subscribe button. I am so sorry for the quality of my mic today, quality of my video. I am in the UK at the moment, so I am struggling to hear the guys here during the stream. Phil says, now you see why Archer sold another 85 million shares. Trey believes they have a multi-bag. Hookdem says, Joby hold over $17 with a 14.61 billion market cap, and Archer over 920 with a 6.05 billion market cap. Andrew always executes. I've spoken about Andrew before. I love Andrew. If Andrew IPO, I'd be the first in the queue to buy it. The only thing is, when you affiliate with just Andrew, aren't you more or less tying yourself down to, if Andrew says jump, Archer says how high? And that's my only worry there. Mark, what sort of approach is Joby taking in that regards? Do they have the likes of an Andrew basically going to sell the aircraft for them, or are they looking to?
That's L3. It's L3 Harris is going to will militarize. L3 will take the whatever requirements or our request for proposals, and then we'll generate a proposal, and we'll, based on that proposal, say this will be our airframe. If they win a contract, then Joby will supply the aircraft to L3. L3 will militarize it to whatever respect they need to, and then it'll get delivered to the government.
Well, thank you so much for that. And Vash says Andrew will be the prime artist.
That's exactly right. Yep, that's what you see all the time.
aka Brunin says less of sell the dream. Bag says if one of the objectives is low cost, maybe they will not be using secret technology. Data says half the chat would be 2. I'm on OS. What a live stream. The breakdown is so clear and on point. Thanks for all the hard work, brothers. No, thank you, my guy. Good progress in what you're doing at the moment. Mixie Phils. Joby's already sold its soul to Toyota. It's no longer a US company.
No, I don't buy that.
Do you know what it is? The two Phils. One Phil we have in the chat is so pro Joby, and the other Phil we have in the chat is so pro. And the two, like, oh my god, you don't like the other company, do you? But no, look, just don't get married to a stock. That's all I say.
And again, take it all in perspective. So if Joby is, let's say, 6 months to a year ahead in the type certification FAA over Archer, does Archer have a 6 months lead into the DoD and any step there? Joby's going with a more legacy brand in L3. So again, you have Archer, Anduril, the Palantir kind of combo. So it's kind of like your new age. What could the world be? Versus Joby, Toyota, L3, it's kind of like what we know who gets the contracts, we know the percentage and breakdowns of what the DoD will give L3 versus the Northrop, Lockheed, and all those other defense players as well. So that's interesting as well. And so it's something that it'll be interesting for me to see where the Joby base ends up taking the defense side as well, more the fan base, because it's always seemed like it's been something that's been too many hats for Archer to wear. So it's like, it's almost like if these guys would just marry together, like if Archer and Joby would just marry together somehow, it's like you bring Archers in their manufacturing, their additional facilities, bring them online. Maybe it's Joby's aircraft. It's like something here in the middle has got to marry. So I don't know if that's hover, and it comes out of nowhere, but I feel like each one has a little bit of a little mover advantage here. But again, if we're going commercial ops, based on this quarter's call, it definitely showed that Joby has a quicker plan to get the commercial operations inside of the U.S. But if you look at global revenue, maybe Archer has the first mover advantage towards global revenue with the JetX, the Signature, the Falcon Aviations, and such on that. So,
well,
it's tough.
Let's remind everybody too. This is a budding industry. This like we are again we're in the early to mid 1990s where cell phones were. You didn't even have an iPhone yet. You just had a Nokia flip phone. Like you had these manufacturers popping up, but there was multiple manufacturers and they all had different types of phones, and each one had different qualities to them. So I think in 5 years, there's going to be a revenue generating Joby. There's going to be a revenue generating Archer. There's going to be, hopefully a revenue generating Hover. You're going to see all of these different aircraft that will be coming to the market. It's just the timeline to get them to market with a phone takes 9 months, as where with an aircraft takes 4 to 10 years. 5 to 10 years.
A few questions too. Nothing was really brought up. I mean, unless it had to do with finalizing the over-air and mission critical composites, but that was done on 6/7. So I mean, they still could have ran the earnings call and maybe put that in there. So there's not a lot of explanation on why the earnings call was now bumped to 8/11. I think some people were hoping that there was going to be, this just kind of surprise news that was going to come out of them. But I'm almost curious to somebody that's shown the way he's shown his personality to us as Adam, how he feels after he's getting off a call like this, comparative to, I can't say if he listens to Jobin's calls or not, but let's just say he does. And then, getting off a call after today and then having to sit back and really look at where his counterpart is in the industry. And to Mark, like you said, the statement's more of the banging on the tables. This is where we are. And, again, I don't want to say this is Adam with his tail between his legs, because I'm still very curious about the Archer defense side. I get that the program of record, the Anduril's a big deal. But again, we know that those are sales of aircraft. And what do we need to do to keep this company going and to stay profitable? We need to bring revenue through the door. So again, is Adam finding the best way to get revenue through the door, knowing that his aircraft is not going to be type certed and regulated to fly in the U.S. for commercial operations? So is he doing the best for his company? As Joe Bennett has maybe had that laser focus on, I know what, and brought the DERs in, like you said, early, since about 2016, I think you said, Mark, and having those on site for straight commercial operations and what revenue that can bring through the door as well. So, yeah, curious how he's feeling.
I think that Adam and Jobin are two very different people. I think, and I've not looked up Adam and what his background is, but I think he probably comes much more from a business side. Mm-hmm. And obviously Jobin is an engineer true and true. If I can guarantee if the two of them walked into the bar, I think I know which one will be coming out with the girl. But on the flip side, if
well, then of course,
but who's going to be flying the girl away though? Adam.
You've got a £15 billion company.
but the guy walking the guy walking the girl out is going to put her in the other guy's eVTOL and fly her home. So they're just two very different people. Adam came from the world of raising capital. He started this entire company off just this idea of I'm going to raise this capital, I'm going to build an engineering team, and I'm going to build this product. And that's exactly what he's doing. As we're on the flip side, Jobin is an engineer. Jobin started with the idea and built it all himself. So there's differences there. And I also think that Jobin has they've just had a much longer time in the game as well. You like that?
that has to become the day that actually Phil, I don't agree with most things you say, but my God, that did make me laugh.
There was actually one other comment I wanted to point out before I shoot off because I've got work in one. But it was this one here about, I'm not sure if this got covered, but did ATMOC look at the over-air patents? And then it says about, by the way, I appreciate Mark and Dylan's contributions so much. You guys are excellent value adds. So just to make sure that one wasn't missed.
He's a really good guy. Bastard's really good people. Much appreciate that. Much appreciate that. But I'm curious, again, as we look at the over-air and the patents that they did secure, is that anything, and we can take this to a Sunday stream or something, but is that anything where if they've had IPs prior to any of the other companies that have started to develop or any of the other tilt rotators that have been developed after over-air had these IPs, is that anything that Archer can come in and say, now I have that intellectual property over, you are no longer, allowed to use. But I'll leave that one maybe till the Sunday stream or something like that. We can look more into all the different mechanics that over-air brings over.
Perfect. Sound well.
Final words.
Well, to the next one, I guess. I feel like let's hope that they have a good. Let's hope they have a good plan. I know they mentioned the good plan several times there.
There you go.
Just some more information. I just want some more detail. I want to know where we sit and how far are we away. At the end of the day, I think we're all here for the 5 to 10 year plus mark. So it's not as if 2 years should really scare you off, because it should still be within the 10 year to 2040 range where this will become a $1 trillion industry.
And we'll see if we get any analyst re-ratings too, see if anybody bumps Archer down that was on the call, based on what they said. Because again, Sabi, she's always on the call. She's asking, to me, she asked some of the best questions as well with Bill on the call. So, if anybody has a chance, I say go back, watch the stream again. If you're really into the eVTOLs, into Archer or into Joby, either one, I say go back, listen to the earnings call again. And just again, because sometimes we're in the moment, we're kind of hearing what we either think we're going to hear, but go back, give it a re-listen. And if you have any questions, definitely follow up with us. And we'll keep an eye on all that for you as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Once I return to my homeland, I will be doing a breakdown of the actual financials. I want to do it a lot more digestible. We get an awful lot of questions around the whole financials. I'll do a breakdown just for the average retail investor, just so you can understand everything. I want to do a breakdown video of the earnings call just as a small little snippet. And then, do you know what? I can't wait for this next quarter. Let's wrap the channel. Let's get exciting. But look, guys, my name's Ian. I am one of the Huss brothers here. I have not been here for a long time. Currently on vacation, only down the road from Race. But no, it's been really nice having you here. We have Race here. We have Archer's biggest bull, and then we have the fan favorite. We have Mark Berry sitting over there in the corner. Guys, I cannot wait to get back to this eVTOL Weekly, eVTOL Fan Club. And you know what, guys? We're going to start ramping out more videos. Until, what day is today? Today is, I'm all over the place.
Somehow it's Monday, man. We're already waiting. Yeah, we're still in Monday.
Yeah, Monday. So what? Are we saying Wednesday, Thursday? When do we want a fan club?
I won't be. It'll be Saturday or Sunday for me. I won't be around the rest of the week.
All right. Yeah. Let's shoot for Thursday or Friday.
Thursday.
I like that. Thursday. Yeah.
Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern time.
Perfect.
Let's lock it in. Cool.
Okay.
Sounds
Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. See you then, guys. All right.
See you then.
Until then.
Yeah.
We'll see you.
Stay healthy.
See you guys.